to be here?
Yeah.
We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you being patient with us. This is our first ever deal, and we hope that it's the first of many, many, many more informative, awareness type events. But more importantly, even than awareness, is that folks leave here with hope. Hope for a brighter tomorrow, hope for a brighter future. So welcome. We're glad you're here. We ask ahead of time for your grace. We would appreciate your patience with us, and we'll have a good morning. So Marcus, good morning.
Good morning.
Let the church say amen.
Amen.
Glad to be here this morning.
All right.
I wouldn't have been up here probably about 8 to 9 months ago, but God seen differently. So we'll start with opening a prayer. God wouldn't mind bowing your heads.
Amen.
Eternal Father God, we come to you this day, Father God, this morning. Thank you for this day which you have allowed us to live to see, Father God. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your mercy, Father God, and your grace which has kept us here, which has allowed us to be here, Father God. Thank you for this new year, Father God. Thank you for all the panelists, Father God, all the brothers and sisters, the children of God here this morning, Father God. We love you, we praise you, we worship, we adore you, Father God. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Jimmy Braddock, and I'm part of a movement or a group that we introduce ourselves in a little bit different way. We say that I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I have struggled with whatever I struggles with. In my case, it's drug and alcohol abuse, porn addiction, and sexual immorality. And my name is Jimmy. I started with the most important identifier. I started with the fact that I'm a believer in Christ. That's my identity. Not the things that I've struggled with, not the things that I've done. So it's important for me to stay focused on that. We're going to talk about a lot of issues today. There's a whole lot of things we want to share with you that we're not going to have time to share. But just hope that, again, that you leave here with hope and inspiration to be a part of something bigger than yourself, to be a part of a movement, to be a part of helping and providing hope for some others. So I'd ask our panelists to come up and have a seat. As they do that, one of the things that I was talking with several different people this morning about is ultimately we talk about all kinds of issues. We're going to talk about substance abuse, we're going to talk about depression and anxiety, we're going to talk about the epidemic that is opioid addiction, we're going to talk about pornography addiction, domestic violence, human trafficking. There are a lot of other things that we could talk about too, but ultimately whatever those topics are, they are merely just a symptom. They are an outward expression of a much bigger issue. And that much bigger issue is an emptiness, a hopelessness, almost a godlessness that we're experiencing in our society, and that's manifested in our lives. When we don't have a relationship with the saving power, the saving grace of Jesus Christ, we act out in all sorts of ways. And so there's a root problem, but we're going to talk about some of the symptoms and ways that you can be aware and, again, be involved in the treatment of and the dealing with those issues. So I believe that we are living in a society that as a whole is depressed. You agree with that? Is that a pretty fair statement?
Yes. Yes.
We're living in a society that overall is depressed. We're overall anxious. We're overall overwhelmed. We're overall just dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. Talking with somebody just a little while ago, the studies are incredible. The drastic increase in teen suicide, teen depression, teen bullying, all of these things since the advent of smartphones.
Amen.
So there's one other big deal that we need to be talking about, and that ties into some of the things we'll talk about today. But we're in a society that we're struggling. We've got a lot of things going on. Again, we want to share some of those things with you. As a society of depressed people, anxious people, overwhelmed people, one of the things we want to talk about is the actual depression and anxiety on an individual basis. The things that always gets me about depression and anxiety is it does not look like what you think it looks like. That makes sense? You can't look at somebody and say, oh, that person's depressed. That person's dealing with anxiety. Matter of fact, you probably look at this panel And if you were to pick one, you probably, this is just my guess, you probably wouldn't pick the one that's going to talk about depression and how it's really affected her life. Because again, you can't go without appearances. The young lady that we're going to have talk about her depression she's studying to be a pilot. She wants to work for NASA. When you say it's not rocket science, she wants to do rocket science. That's not a crowd I run with, just being honest with you. I want to introduce y'all to Marissa, Miss Marissa Burnet. Marissa is originally from Atlanta. She lives now here in South Carolina. I just made the connection this morning, got to know her dad a while back. So I know from where she comes, so she's got a good influence there. But she is studying to be an airline pilot and later wants to work for NASA. She has a heart for serving people and her Lord, and that's why she decided to join as an ambassador for FAR, which is Far Above Rubies, and be on our panel today. She knows that she has a testimony, and sharing it will help others as well as herself. So just kind of in the spirit of this question and answer, Marissa, thanks first for being here. And just if you would, very quickly kind of tell us sort of when your depression started, and sort of just in a few sentences, best you can, sort of what that looked like early on.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My depression started when I was about 12 years old. It traveled all the way up until age 21. The signs were early. I had loss of appetite, isolation. I just kind of started to shut down. And I really didn't understand because I was so young. And things would happen at school which wouldn't help. It would just kind of egg it on. And I started, I was hospitalized, and that's when I realized that I was depressed.
So that one of the questions I was going to ask you, had you ever been hospitalized? So it got that extreme that you ended up in hospital.
Yes, it got to the point where I had to be hospitalized. I had given up on life, and my relationship with God went to none, and I really had just lost myself.
Was there, if you look back now, is there one moment that just stands out as just that bottom, that ultimate desperation where you felt hopeless, just that one time in your life?
Yeah, it was last year. I just felt like I was at rock bottom, but it was like I had this like fire of like one, they say one thing of a mustard seed is all you need of faith. And that's what I had for myself, and I told myself that I wasn't gonna let myself go.
Awesome. So what we'll do, sort of in the spirit of time, we'll kind of move on, but we're going to open this up after we finish with just introductions to questions for you guys. So if you would, if you got away, if you want to go ahead and make a note, or if you've got a program, the number's on there. If you have questions, you can text those questions to the phone number 803-470-1103. As we're talking, if you want to go ahead and text those, I'll apologize in advance because it's going to come to my cell phone, and if it buzzes, that's what it is. But I'm trying to keep it on my pocket, or on my lap, so it's not so loud. But keep that number also, because that's actually the number for our ministry, Impact Family Ministries. So that's a resource if you have, whether it's to plug in here with us, Far Above Rubies, us ministry. If you've got questions following up, just keep that number and feel free to give us a call. We'd love to have you do that. A lot of times, one of the things Marissa and I were talking about was depression leads to things to cover it up. We mask it and we hide it and we try to do things to fill those holes or to cover it up. And for me, I found that in substance abuse. I found it in alcohol and ultimately drugs, and became addicted. We've got 3 of our panelists actually who have dealt with very, very similar backgrounds. Introduce you to Shannon, Marcus, and Patton. Shannon is a person in recovery from a 10-plus year drug addiction. She's been clean for almost 3 years. Her mission is to reach into the pits of hell and pull people from the life of addiction and show them a better way of life. Every time I hear that or see that, I think of the C.T. Studd quote that says, "Some people want to live within the sound of a church or chapel bell. I want to set up a rescue shop within yards of hell." And I believe that's Shannon's heart. Marcus lived a lifestyle of drug addiction, alcohol addiction, gang lifestyle. The Lord Jesus delivered him from that, and he is 100% unashamed of his recovery. And Jesus, he says Jesus was his rehab. So we've got Pat and I go back a long ways. Pat dealt with addiction and mental health issues for over 40 years. Was in rehab for heroin addiction within the last year or so. But today he calls himself a hope dealer. Instead of a dope dealer, he's a hope dealer. So got a couple of questions for you guys. I'll start with Shannon, and just you guys can pass the mic back and forth or answer however you can. So what are some, if I'd known you, what were some of the signs that I could have seen that we know now in recovery that we weren't hiding them real well? But what are some of the signs that need to be looked for when it comes to drug addiction and abuse?
No, you mean, is this on?
No,
Is it cut wireless? Is that wireless or wired? The wireless is not plugged in.
Okay.
So we'll just use this. Perfect.
That's,
Hey guys.
hello.
For me, and you know what, I never really thought about this until about 2 weeks ago. I started drinking in high school, but here's the thing, I kept it together. I was really good about partying on the weekends and doing what I needed to do on the weekdays for school. For me, I got heavily into drugs when I was 21. And I was curious. I didn't have a bad upbringing. My parents, didn't treat me bad. They truly loved me. But for me, it was curiosity. That drug dealer was right beside me in the apartments. And for me, it was just that one question: do you want to try this? And that was it. That was it. That was my 10-year drug addiction, because I answered a question that should have been no. I answered yes, I want to try it. So for me, it was so easy for me to just fall into that. But now that I look at it, I did struggle with depression in high school. I never really looked for the signs until after I started using drugs, and that kind of just fed into my depression. So yeah, I did it out of curiosity because it was there, and it was there right beside me, and I just was asked a question, and I said yeah. That question that I should have said no, I said yes to. So it was so easy for me to just to say yes when I totally should have said no. So yeah.
Completely for lack of better words, Marcus, how'd you get started? What introduced you to that lifestyle? How'd you end up there?
I started out sniffing cocaine when I was, I want to say age like 21. It was a Saturday afternoon. It was mandatory. We had to work because I'm an electrician by trade. We had to work on a Saturday, so nobody wanted to go home. So I was like, we can have a party at my house, and everybody was at the house in the kitchen, in my kitchen, and I seen a guy pull out a bag, a plastic white bag, and I was full of I thought it was sugar at first. I was like, man, what y'all doing over there sniffing sugar, just putting their finger down in it, just tasting it. And I just got the biggest kick out of that, not knowing what it was. And they said, no, man, this cocaine, you want to try some? And peer pressure, and I did. And probably about 10 minutes later, I was outside doing round-off and backflips in my front yard. And that night, my nose just started running real bad. I thought it was just water, but I woke up and looked at my pillow, it was a pool full of blood. And I didn't do it again for like a year and a half because I was scared. I didn't expect that to happen. And I got stressed out, problems with my life and what happened with my life, and then I went back to it, and I was on it again for like 6-7 years, and I started smoking crack after that, and I was on that for about 3.5 years. That's the worst thing you could ever do, you know. And I'm a living testimony. If he can save me, I know for a fact he can save anybody that's on that drug. And it was just bad. Like people couldn't stand to see me coming. You know, my attitude sucked. You know, had an attitude with everybody. I knew I was losing weight, but I couldn't stand for nobody to tell me that. You know, just, oh man, you look bad. And I just get so mad. You know, and I knew it. Looking at myself every day in the mirror, my eyes was sunk in, recessed in the back of my head. Skin had got dark. You know, it's just death. I was death walking. And, you know, I had developed a bad stuttering problem. You know, and whenever I went around my friends that I wasn't used to having a stuttering problem, they would know something was wrong. They were like, man, what's wrong with your speech? Why you talking like that? Even my kids, you know, I go around, Daddy, why you stuttering like that? They get a kick out of it, they'll laugh at it, but not knowing, I knew the reason why I had that stuttering problem. And I got tarried, anointed, received the Holy Spirit, and I'm here now. Thank God, you know. Definitely. Thank you. Yes.
Pat, I know part of your story is opioid addiction. Opioid addiction it's been classified as an epidemic. Technically, legally, everything else. One of the big problems is that it's prescription medication.
Yes.
So talk just a little bit about how folks, our kids in particular, are getting a hold of these opioids that are leading to these lifestyle.
Yeah, the opioid epidemic is horrible. My personal experience with that, I was working for a place in Columbia, and I tore my rotator cuff, and of course they put me on pain medications. Well, to be honest with you, I was already taking pain medications then, but once the doctor started prescribing the pain meds and you can just get them to keep going up. The pain management people, they're there to serve you. I mean, they're there to cure your pain, but they're there to get you out of their face. I mean, it's really an epidemic that there's a lot of details that go into that, but I was so involved with the pain pills and so just addicted to them that it led right to heroin. The pain pills, after a while, they don't do the same thing. But kids these days, I mean, everyone probably has pain medication in their cabinet at home, and you know, kids are, like Shannon said, kids are curious. You know, what we can do to combat that is to lock your medications up, because some people need pain medications, and I admire those people that can take them, but I'm not one that can take them. So yeah, the awareness of getting it out there, and I want to say this, Jimmy, the guns aren't shooting people. The mental illness is pulling the trigger on stuff like that, and you know, addiction is. And to me, it's a mind disease. It's not a heart disease. So if you have a loved one that's dealing with addiction, keep in mind that it is a mind disease, not a heart disease. You know, you can still have a good heart, but it doesn't match up with your mind. It is a sickness. It is a disease.
Thanks, Pat. Shannon, there's different avenues of treatment and everything else. One of the things, especially with chemical addiction, is this debate of whether it's treated as a disease or what, you know. Can we talk a little bit to that, what that looks like, and how that affects the actual treatment of addiction?
Yes. Like he said, the doctors put you on these prescriptions to get you through something like a surgery or, you know, a fall or whatever, or a major life-changing surgery for you, and then kind of just push you out the door. Like, okay, you're taken care of. But you eventually get used to taking those pills. It's kind of like an everyday thing, and then you rely on those pills. And in order for you to get off, they give you more pills. So for me, I had to quit cold turkey. Like, I didn't want to take anything else. My last drug was opioids. So you could easily have given me Suboxone or something like that. And that's what they give people. They give pills to get off of other pills. So you get into this lifestyle of taking these pills, and then they just kind of like shoot you out the door and like try to hush you and give you more pills, and then you're left with more pills. So for me, I had to go to rehab. I had to change my mindset. I had to be on my kitchen floor wanting to kill myself in order for me to realize this is what I'm left with. Like, this is what my disease has left me with. It was all pretty at the beginning. It was all good. It was all wrapped up in a pretty little bow for me. It was fun. I got high. But 10 years later, I'm on my floor with knives in front of me wanting to commit suicide because that's what my disease left me with. And then nobody knows what to do with it. Nobody knows what to do with you. So for me, I had to go to rehab. I had to change my mindset. I had to rely on God. God, let me tell you something. And I know as cliche as it sounds, God is the only thing that saved me that day. There is no other thing. There is nothing else. Because once I gave everything to Him, He gave me everything He's always promised me. I just needed to let go of what I was holding on, and that was my addiction, and that was my disease. So going back to your question, I'm sorry, I kind of go off for a second. But going back to your question, the doctors give you all these pills, and then they expect you to get off of it on your own. But in reality, they just keep on feeding you more pills. So you have to change your mindset. You have to go to rehab. You have to change everything about you. Everything. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, and that's a really good jumping off point, and that we kind of set these things up in order for a reason, because I think so much of it leads into the next thing. So, we at some point sought to medicate some other issue, and we sought that in drugs and alcohol, and some people actually choose to seek that release or fulfillment or whatever that is in pornography and sexual immorality and things of that nature. So kind of really a good segue is it's been proven that pornography actually stimulates in the brain some of the same pleasure receptors that cocaine does. So that's sort of a good segue for us. My friend Stephen Gantek, Stephen's a CIU graduate. He founded Refuge out of God's healing in his own life. Refuge provides training and resources for churches on how to effectively deal with purity issues in the church. Stephen's desire is to see the brokenness in men healed and the church empowered and equipped to protect our kids and families from the influence of pornography. We've kind of touched on it, but what's the underlying issue when it comes to porn addiction?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, pornography, whether it's a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, whether it's whatever it is, it's a heart issue. It's just a symptom of something that's going on deeper into our hearts. One of the things that we do within a refuge, when we work with guys at Refuge, is we gotta allow God to take men and show them where they've been hurt and wounded. And typically that hurt and wound has taken place in childhood. And so when a child is growing up, he's going to receive that hurt, or she receives that hurt or wound from mom or dad, don't even know they've been hurt or wounded until later on in life, and that wound starts festering and starts causing emotional pain, and then they eventually have to start going towards something to have that pain released. If we're not having our minds renewed by Christ, and we're not going to Him to have Him meet our needs of love and acceptance, worth and approval and security, then we're going to the world to have those needs met, because Satan is saying it's going to fulfill you. And we have to allow God to heal those hurts and those wounds. And so with pornography, it's going back to allowing God to bring healing to those hurts and those wounds. And so that's why it's just so important for us to really target what that is, because it's just a symptom of something that goes on deeper. The thing with pornography, there's so much research that's being done that is pornography is equivalent to a heroin addiction when you look at scans of the brain. And some research that is coming out now is starting to say that a porn addiction is actually greater than a heroin addiction with the damage that is being done into the brain. So now we have a twofold thing going on, where we have someone that is having an addiction to pornography, and when they're coming off of that pornography, now we have to come off that chemical addiction as well that they're struggling with. The problem with pornography versus a heroin addiction is eventually that person that's struggling with heroin, they're going to run out of substance. And so they're going to have to go get more substance to get high. With pornography, we just can keep clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking, and we will never run out of substance because there's so much pornography available that's free. And then it's just causing other big issues.
So, and my mouth's big enough, I don't need the mic necessarily. So, in that aspect, it's readily available, it's free. Everyone that's got one of these can get to it. I've read actually it's easier to log on to an internet porn site than it is actually some children's educational material, which is crazy. There are filters in place to educate our kids, but they can get pornography for free. And actually we'll get to it at some point. There are legislative issues with some of that too, so we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So with that in mind, what's being done? In particular, what's the church doing when it comes to this issue?
Crickets. There are some small percentage of churches that are dealing with this issue, but for the majority of churches, it is such a taboo issue to deal with pornography in the church that they are avoiding it. It's the big pink elephant that's running rampant in our churches. Churches are trying to stuff it in a closet, sweep it under the rug, and we don't want to deal with it. We have men and women that are in leadership roles in churches that are struggling with pornography. I'm part of the PCA church. We had to remove a pastor just several months ago because on Sunday mornings he was preaching between services. He was going to look at pornography and then going back into the pulpit to preach. So we've had to actually remove him out of office for that. The church, it's a huge issue in the church. If we lose men in our churches, we lose our families. If we lose our families, we lose in our churches. It's such a huge issue. Guys, I got more single guys that come to me and say, I'm struggling with pornography, I need help, versus guys that are married. Because if someone comes to me and they're married, the first question I'm asking them is, does your wife know you're meeting with me? And if she doesn't know, then we're going to have a serious conversation with her, because we have to bring her into this situation because she's a part of this now. So the church is just, I speak to so many churches, and I'm in sales, and I'm pitching and selling and wheeling and dealing. Churches kind of get interested about it, but when we start really getting down to the nitty gritty about it, they don't want to deal with the issue, because now we have to deal with sin, and we don't want to deal with sin. And so the church really needs to repent. We really need to ask and seek the Lord on this, because it's such a huge issue in the church, and it's nothing new. I mean, if we look in the scriptures, almost every letter that Paul wrote to a church, he addressed this issue of flee from sexual immorality. So it's nothing new. It's the church just needs to step up and start dealing with this issue.
Because it is happening in our schools, our churches, and our homes, and we don't even realize it. So what steps can we take? And I know you've got some material that folks can grab. What steps can we start to take to prevent, to reach our kids and our younger generation to prevent porn addiction?
Yeah, so I launched Refuge in 2010, and I spent 2 years writing all the curriculum for Refuge. In 2012, we really launched. It's how God has healed my heart. I have a 20-plus year addiction to pornography. And the problem with pornography, it's a progressive sin. It can start looking at pictures, but your body, that brain chemistry eventually needs more and more and more to crave that high. And so it eventually starts with one thing of acting out, and then you're getting deeper and deeper into just the dark side of hell on some of the things and the depravity of looking at stuff. And then that eventually leads to doing other things. Pornography is fueling the sex trafficking industry big time right now. With the church not doing things, one of the things that I was really targeting is going in and training leadership to disciple men in their purity. But so many guys, they're not coming out. Typically, look at statistics. 1 in 3 guys eventually come out after they've been caught. So one of the things that we realized when we were doing this is that we have to start training our parents, to start educating our parents, to give them resources on how to talk to their kids about purity issues. And so we can go into the church, we can do discipleship, we can help churches develop discipleship programs for guys that are struggling, but our heart really is now we want to start training mom and dad. so that mom and dad have a healthy view of what marriage is and what sex and marriage is. Sex is a gift that God has given us that we're to enjoy and we're to have fun with. We can look at scripture, there's a book all about having sex, and it's supposed to be enjoyable between a husband and wife. But so many mom and dads, they don't really know what that looks like. And so we really start training mom and dad, what is sex, what can we even do when it comes to sex, and start training parents to start having conversations with their kids. And we have resources available to start teaching your child as early as 2 years of age, all age appropriate, about marriage, sex and marriage, and purity. We have a 10-year-old, and we've already started this conversation when he was about 5, and we've had conversations with him about homosexuality, transgenderism, and it's all related back to marriage, it's all related back to sex and marriage, God's gifting, age appropriate, and so we can really equip parents to start having these conversations with their kids to identify things and to really start helping them work through this process, because statistics show age 9 is the average age a child is first exposed. We're starting to see that numbers becoming between 6 and 7, and we're seeing these hardcore images of pornography, and kids think, oh, this is what sex is about, and pornography is so violent, and so it's not what sex is about. And so kids are seeing this and they're exposed to it, and so it's frying their brains at such a young age, and go on untreated, unprotected. Now they're bringing that into the marriage. And so most guys that I deal with, addiction didn't start after their marriage. It's something they brought into the marriage. So it's just equipping the church to do it.
Mr. Jimmy, I'd like to speak on that real quick, if you don't mind. I think that a lot of people think that pornography is only a men thing, and it also is a woman thing. I suffered a pornography addiction 6 or more years now. What helped me get through it was I learned that you can block stuff on your phone, on your computer, and so I just kind of started blocking it out. I also told people, because once you tell people, you realize how embarrassing it is. So I had shared it with people, and I just took a step to change it, because I just felt like it is just as bad as cocaine. I thought that if I wasn't doing drugs, that I was okay. I was doing something else. I also thought that, if I wasn't sleeping around and I was just, using masturbation, I didn't think that it was actually something that was wrong. But in all, it's a lot worse, because, like you said, you'll run out of substance, but the internet's always going to be there. So you can always continue to go on and go on and go on. And I would go on multiple times a day, and it's really time consuming. And I knew every time that I did it, it was wrong, because something would go wrong that day. Something would go wrong that day that if I didn't do it, the day was fine. And I had, did a lot of research on it, because I was just like, what is this really about? I was doing this just for a temporary thing, and it became it consumed me. And I read that there's chemicals in your body that if you do it so much, you're losing that chemical. So, like you said, you get into a marriage, you get into a relationship with somebody, that chemical's not there. So, I really am happy to say that, I've overcome pornography. Like I said, it's in women as well as men. It's in a lot of women. It's definitely was for me. And I just appreciate the fact that, you can change from it, but you do have to get help above. You can get over it, but you have to get outside help as well, because it's like a chemical, like you said, and you've got to get that chemical back. And,
Thanks so much. Thank you for sharing that, because that goes untalked about, unnoticed. So thank you, Marissa. One of the things, and again, sort of putting these things in order for a reason, with pornography, it's progressive, just like drug and alcohol addiction is. It's progressive. It gets worse and worse and worse. With pornography, ultimately, what happens is when those images on the computer, or I'm guessing they still print magazines, but digitally, you got these digital images that you're being bombarded with. Eventually, those aren't enough. eventually you will act out in other ways to seek what those things are doing for you. Mark?
Because y'all, even though if it's not visual, even your brain knows, your memory, that you think about, oh, I remember that, and I seen that big, but you know what I'm saying? Just a couple weeks ago, you know what I'm saying? Then you're trying to get off of that, and then it keeps playing in your brain over and over and over again. Go ahead, it's not gonna hurt you, it's not gonna hurt you. One more time. Cause like I said, what y'all was saying, when I was on drugs, crack cocaine, like it just intensified my hormones, like my sex drive, and I had to masturbate, you know. And then once I was done, I was good, you know. And I felt so bad afterwards, and like she said, everything just went wrong. I would get just so scared, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, something about to happen, you know, what you did, and like, yes, definitely. So I told her, it's not just visually, it's like your mind too. Your mind is a powerful thing. So yes, definitely.
And porn's different because when you're, you think about abstinence and you think about not doing those things. When you think about don't look at porn, what are you thinking about? Those images that you don't want to be looking at. Right. So it is a very visual thing. But ultimately, men and women act out on those things. They look outside of the internet or whatever it is they're looking at, and whether it's extramarital affairs. Ultimately, we're going to talk about some other issues. But one of the things I believe, let me back up. I believe as a society, we as parents and adults and the church have lost our influence when it comes to shaping our young people, when it comes to what healthy sexual relationships look like. We've lost our influence, so we've got to gain that back. But part of that deal, and I hope I'm not stealing too much thunder, one of the stats that just blows me away in this state is since records have been kept, we've always been at the top or led the country in violence against women by men in South Carolina. We also are last or near last when it comes to education. I think there's a direct correlation between those two. So I want to talk about domestic violence a little bit. And we've got our great friend, Mr. Anthony Bell. Mr. Bell is a graduate of Claflin University, has a 30-plus year law enforcement career. As a result of an internship with the late Senator Strom Thurmond, that sparked a lifelong interest in politics, which has led him to run for elected office in a neighboring county. Is that the... Oh, well, we don't have to be politically correct. Mr. Bell's running for sheriff of Kershaw County, and so he's been gracious to join us today and talk a little bit about domestic violence. Driven by his faith in Jesus Christ and his commitment to service, Mr. Bell in his personal and professional life seeks daily to positively impact lives, inspire the community, and empower the people in that community. So, Mr. Bell, thank you for being here, and tell us a little bit about what domestic violence is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
My mother always said when your feet above ground, it's always a good day. So every one of y'all feet is above ground, so it's a very good day. I was looking over this panel, and the day is, did you know? Do you know? Did you know? If you look up here at all these beautiful people, you would never guess some of the things that we've been through. So, what did I tell you? Don't judge people from the outside. Get to know people, ladies and gentlemen. Get to know them. And I've got to know every one of these people on this panel. I've got to know them personally, except one man I'm getting to know today. And we talk about domestic violence. My good friend, Miss Cleveland, is back there, and I'm sure she's going to talk some more about this. We've been friends for years. We worked at Richland County Sheriff's Office together, and she's taught me a lot throughout these years. But as Jimmy said, domestic violence is a very, very big issue in South Carolina. We're at the top in women killed by men. But don't get this wrong and don't get some confused now. There are women that beat on men too. Did y'all hear me? There are women that beat on men too. When I was an instructor at the academy, we had a young man come in that had been shot by his wife. And she left him to die. And why did domestic violence affect me so much? Because I had a good friend in the 90s in Anderson County, early 90s. She was stalked by her living boyfriend, and she went to the city police department to tell them. But they told her at that time, there's not a pattern, he hasn't done anything, there's nothing we can do, which was pretty much the truth. But it got to the point where he told her, if I can have you, nobody else will. And ladies and gentlemen, one morning at work, He proved that point. He went and shot her. Point blank range. Domestic violence is, to me, it's something that we need to really look at in this state. When you hire something in low education, you build more prisons than you do schools, there's a problem. We have that problem. And I bet if you look at yourself and you really think back, you know someone who's been affected by domestic violence. Speak up. There are children at school every day. Every day. That is a boyfriend or girlfriend. They're being hit on. They won't come home and tell you about it. And other kids don't tell because they say what? Snitches get stitches. Well, if you don't snitch, they're going to get a coffin. So I feel that this state, that we need to do more about domestic violence. Now, when Governor Haley was in office, she did. She went to legislation. She said we need to do more about domestic violence. So they went up on the crime. They went up on the offense, the penalties. To me, it's still not enough, ladies and gentlemen. Because you can commit domestic violence and be out of jail before I can write the incident report. And that's the honest to God truth. And go right back to that house and do it again. Well, they say go get a restraining order. Ladies and gentlemen, restraining order with the papers written on. Because Jimmy can tell you, and Sandra can tell you, restraining order, you have to go back to court to get something done.
Yep.
You have to go back to court. Order of protection is what we tell you to get. And a lot of ladies will not get them because they feel like, well, he's my provider. He takes care of the kids. He takes care of me. He loves me. When love comes to hit, that's not love. That is not love. But you cannot tell some women that because they've been in it so long, they believe it's a part of life. They believe that, oh, if he don't hit me, he don't love me. I'm sorry, Jim, but it affects me because it bothers me to see that there are women still don't believe they can survive by themselves. Well, ladies, you got to love yourself first. You got to love yourself first. In order to love somebody else, you got to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you're no good to anybody else anyway. If you got low self-esteem, what you think he's going to do? He's going to feed on that. He's going to bring it right on down. And then you're going to feel like, well, nobody else wants me. Nobody's going to have me. There's somebody out there that God has picked for you. There's somebody that God has handpicked for you to love you, to cherish you, to honor you for the rest of your life. You just got to take the time to let him find you. You don't find him. Let him find you. The Bible says the man finds a good wife, finds a good what? Absolutely. I'm sorry, Jim, I just want to.
You good?
So, domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen, it's a family member. What's a family member? Anybody you gravitated with, have children with, or been married to. An ex-husband. An ex-wife. I'm going to give you one more example. There was a young lady in my hometown, had been divorced for 10 years. Husband still talking, still after her, still just following her. Well, her boyfriend was out with me and some friends at a club one night in Greenville. We were young at the time. We were like, I wasn't even in law enforcement. The ex-husband of 10 years comes to the club. See the wife and the boyfriend in the club, walks up to him and speaks. Asks the young man, can I see you outside? So, you know, we all get up and walk outside. You know, back in those days, we all want to know what's going on. He pulls out a gun at the young man. This is a basketball player now, Pamela High School. Pulls out the gun and points it at him and says, I would kill you. The dude said, shoot me, MF. And guess what he did? Shot him. Right there in front of all of us. So I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter how long you've been divorced. If that man is still after you, trust and believe. You need to get some help. Put him in jail. Don't be afraid. Put him or her in jail before you end up in a wood box. Thank you.
like everything else we've talked about, there are a couple of common denominators. Number one, there's this cycle of, engaging in something, the regret, the remorse, the hurt, but ultimately going back to it. Even knowing the outcome, the potential outcome, we keep going back to it. And also I think that there's an even bigger common theme in that we need help. We need outside help, and help from a power greater than us, to be able to be removed from those situations.
Well, most women and men are ashamed to ask for help. They're ashamed to go out and ask somebody for help because they feel like it's going to hurt my family. Because you know what most people tell you, what goes on in the house stays in the house. No, if it hurts your house, you need to tell somebody. Tell somebody.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions there also. So sort of the next step when we talk about pornography, progression, acting out, human trafficking is a major issue in today's society. In particular, we're talking about sex trafficking. One of the things that I always think about when it comes to sex trafficking is this idea of prostitution, and that it's okay, it's consenting. Here's the deal, folks. Here's the honest. This is the way I view it when it comes to prostitution, and we can debate it all day if you want after we finish. You're welcome to your opinion and be wrong as well. So, prostitution is one individual paying to rape another. I believe that with every ounce of my being. And that is at the core of what sex trafficking is. So we've got Miss Connie Dawkins with us. Connie, like others, founded Us Ministry out of brokenness in her own life. And ultimately it's about reaching out to victims and survivors of sex trafficking, and is an advocate for those victims as well as awareness. So and also help put this together for today. So Connie, with Us Ministry, tell us a little bit about what sex trafficking is.
I would like to thank everyone for being here, because it's taken all of us panelists being here and wanting to bring awareness how, as they say, the domino effect. Sex trafficking is real. It's happening right here in our state. As far as a victim of sex trafficking, no one is excluded. No race, no gender, no social economic group. With sex trafficking, there's a process that's done, either grooming, where the trafficker can be a male or female. They will search out their victim. They will look for if she has maybe some drug addictions or depression, low self-esteem. Even if, say, a young girl's at a party and smokes marijuana or having a drink, she will be recorded, and that will be used against her as a way of manipulating, and later on will come force. Through force, coercion, all these are possible factors. A little bit of my story getting involved with talking about sex trafficking. I started out wanting to let others know that, to bring awareness with another organization, and we needed to make a difference. While talking about it, I was covering up my own survivor story. I was being groomed by my mother, where at the age of 14 and 15, I was taken to hotels by several men. Pictures started out as modeling in bathtubs in a bathing suit, ended up nude on a bed. Felt very ashamed, and this is my mother doing this to me. How could anyone love me? And like as we were talking about with the domino effects, I left home at 16 when my stepfather raped me. and my mother told me it was my fault. During the rape, my stepfather was telling me his friends from prison would like me. I wound up living on the streets for a year and a half, seeing things that young girls shouldn't see, eating out of trash cans. And this one gentleman offered to take me off the streets, and he was going to help me go to school and everything. I had another friend over studying. The gentleman that was so-called get me off the streets busted in the door and told me I was his property. No other man could be in that room, studying or not, unless he was paid. I was able to get out of that house that night by the grace of God. Wound up marrying a man who was took me about 6 months or so before I really got to know my ex-husband. He was a drug dealer. I wound up being traded in that relationship, getting beat, gun put in my head. So see, with going out to talk about sex trafficking, it was covering up myself because I didn't want nobody to know how broken I was, that I was actually a survivor. And it's took this long for me to start sharing my story and letting ones know that no girl asked to be trafficked. No young boy asked to be trafficked. It's all the domino effects with trying to find and manipulate their mind, their spirit, and a way of breaking them down. It took me finding God and really reaching deep into myself because I didn't want nobody to know how broken I am or was. I have met other ladies on this journey who are survivors, and in sex trafficking, no one wants to identify themselves as a victim because it's no self-identity because you don't trust anyone and you start blaming yourself. Did I ask for it? What did I do? Why am I not good enough? The truth is we're all good enough because we have a Father that loves us more than anything. But out here in this world, it tries to break us down. With survivors, you have to let them know you're going to walk life with them because the world too busy wants to put the label. You got to let them know you're going to be there. It's a constant struggle because other traffickers will try to get back into your mind and let you know you haven't overcome this. You are broken. Or, you don't want a lot of your past to come out. Any way they can manipulate you. And it's through changing some laws, tougher laws against Johns for engaging in commercial sex, because that's what it is. It's commercial sex of rape. Anytime anyone pays to have sex with someone, that's rape, regardless of age or gender.
So,
And to back you up, I don't need the mic. There, if you look on Facebook, all these different things on social media, it's all over South Carolina. It's all over South Carolina. There are some people who don't want to talk about it, don't want to admit it, but it's right here, 2-9 Road, Broad River Road, and the Rich subdivision, the Poor subdivision, Kershaw County, it's everywhere. It's all on there. Ladies and gentlemen, watch what your children are doing on Facebook. Watch what they're doing on Backpage, all this, watch what they're doing. Please pay attention, because it's here. It is here, and it's 100% working. Why do you think it's still up there? It's working.
And that addresses exactly what I was gonna go to. We're in little old South Carolina. It's not here, right?
It's larger here than anyone wants to believe. Since we right now, according to Polaris and Sharehope, either a C or a C minus. That's considered up 2 levels from 2011. Because we were, with South Carolina, a lot of people think it's all in other states, not here. Well, Greenville County, Charleston, Columbia, Spartanburg, Myrtle Beach are top of the list for sex trafficking. North Carolina is number 6 on the states. Georgia used to be number 1, it's number 8 now. South Carolina is in between, but we're still listed as the dirty dozen, you know, of sex trafficking. That's where we need to get a lot of laws changed. And a lot is because of the interstates, the corridors, and everything where girls, the reason our numbers are not as high is because a lot of the girls are rescued in other states. And we can talk about the awareness, we can talk about the resources to have, you know, someone to call as far as national and everything, but we need homes opened here, safe houses. We need an emergency center to give that hope.
Because there are several different issues. Number one, our young ladies and young men are being taken literally from here. So that's number one. So we've got a vulnerable population. They end up in other states, so those don't get recorded as, you know, statistics for here. But then you've got the purchase here, so there's that, and then you've got ultimately the demand side of it. As long as you've got men that will pay to
Or
have
women.
sex with somebody, or women, men or women that will pay to have sex with somebody against their will. I mean, we like to think a woman chooses to be in that position, even when it comes to pornography. We like to think that a woman chooses to show those pictures of herself. That is not always the case. More often than not, that is not the case.
Jimmy, 9 out of 10 times it starts with low self-esteem of a young girl. And it starts mostly at home because she don't get attention at home that she feels like she needs to get from her father. So she's out there searching for that attention. And guess where it leads to? Other men. And then once she get into that life, and let me be honest with you, she start making that money, guess what she's gonna do? She's gonna start going into the clubs dancing. That's where it starts. She starts in the club dancing, making that fast money. Then it starts dancing to prostitution. And then once you're in there, and you're making this money, what you think these young girls gonna do? They gonna go to McDonald's and make $9 an hour? They're not gonna do it. They're gonna keep on in that club and that pole, out there in them streets. When I moved here, 2 Knots Road, Miss Cleveland tell you, 2 Knots Road, in the 80s, you drive down the street, somebody jump in the car with you. You stop at the red light, they jump in the car with you, we had it. Like, you don't get out this car. But see, they've taken it from the street now, and guess what? It's on the computer. It's on your phone. So it's not out there anymore. It's hidden because now it's on your phone, on your smartphone, your computer. So you can sit up a date. You can sit home at date, set up a date from your house on your computer and meet that person wherever you want to meet them at. But you better watch out because law enforcement get smart now. They're doing the same thing. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mr. Jason, only one thing. I would say that it's very easy. It's very, when she says it's easy to be sex trafficked today, it is. And the fact that I'm just like, I stay educated with FAR, and even before that in Atlanta, I was doing a lot of stuff with volunteering for domestic violence and sex trafficking. I was able to identify a trafficker about 3 weeks ago. He had come onto my job. I guess he'd come in days before, and he would listen to my conversation. So I would talk to somebody, I'd say, hey, you know, I'm going to school, girl, just doing something with flying or something. Well, this guy decided to come in and he said, is Marissa working? And they were like, yeah. They were like, sit in her section. So they're like, yeah, this guy's here to see you. And I'm thinking, who is this? Because I didn't recognize the man. And he was like, oh, you're Marissa? And this other girl tried to go serve him. And he was like, no, I want Marissa. And so I thought something was wrong with that because I said, this man don't know me and he's asking about me and he only wants me, there's a problem. So get to talk to the man, I go, because I was like, it could be and it couldn't be. So at the end of the day, I'm working, so I have to do my job. So get to talking to him, and he just starts slipping money into me. But not 5s, not 10s. He starts slipping hundreds to me. And like it was nothing. And telling me, about his life and, how everything's going wrong. And the signs was there. And the biggest sign that I find is money. Money. Because they feel like that's what every girl wants right now. That's what every girl needs. We have so much to pay for, bills-wise. We have college. We just have so much going on. We want to go shopping. We want to get our nails done. So they think money is the key. But I saw above that because it started with the fact that he knew my business before anything. So he could have easily said, oh, hey, I heard you're trying to be a pilot, da-da-da-da-da, and got me that way because I like anybody who'll talk to me about NASA. Anybody. And you can talk to me about NASA all day and that's fine, but it's like they'll scope you out. They'll stay, they'll come to where you are, they'll look for you, and you have to be careful at all times because it can happen to anybody, no matter who you are. And I used to my parents used to tell me that. My mom, she's right there, she used to tell me that. And I used to just be like, oh, no, it's me, I'm smarter than that. But it's not about you being smart. You have to be educated, but it's really about the fact that you have to know what to do. You have to see the signs. It should be just as easy as English. For people who speak English, you should just know, okay, this guy, this is the route he's trying to go with me. And then the last thing I'll say is with college kids, I feel like they might not notice the signs of prostitution, but I feel like when some guys I know, they go out and they buy girls drinks or they buy them food or something and then they have sex with them after, I feel like it's the same as paying for sex. Because at the end of the day, they did something in exchange for something else. So that's one thing. I try to keep my friends educated on that because it's crazy out here in South Carolina. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm gonna go ahead and hold on to the mic because I'm gonna come back to you in just a second. We got a couple of questions before we transition. But one of the things I think, again, you talked about being smart. I'm smarter than that. I think at some point we probably all thought we were smarter than, some of us are probably too smart for our own good, too smart to need help and that kind of thing. So again, the awareness and everything else. So we're going to transition in just a minute to our speaker, but I do have a couple of questions that were texted in. So Marissa, what are you doing now to deal with your depression?
I keep myself occupied, honestly. I go to the park. I join church community group. I try to do work, school, just anything that will keep me occupied but is positive for my life at this point. I don't like negative energy. I try to stay away from it as much as possible. So when I find myself getting back into a bad place, I recognize, because there's always a solution to every problem. So I always try to recognize it and say, hey, it's right here, it's happening right now, what are you gonna do about it? You can cry about it, do whatever you have to do, but you have to move on from it. And that's what my dad has taught me too, that you have to move on from it. You can't just keep it because that's what's gonna keep you. You dig yourself a deeper hole as you continue to do the same things. Like they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting a different outcome. And for a lot of time, I expected a different outcome from repeating the same things. But now that I've been doing things differently, I've seen a greater day. So, yeah.
Awesome. Shannon, and I think you touched on this when you spoke. What was your rock bottom that made you want to change your life?
I had multiple rock bottoms throughout my 10 plus years of addiction, but and I tried to commit suicide multiple times, but failed. But my last rock bottom was me ultimately losing absolutely everything. Everything was taken from me. My husband left me, My kids were taken from me. I had no job. I had nowhere to go. That is what made me realize, God, this is big. Because a lot of people babied me. They would get me out of trouble. They wanted to love me, and they wanted to rescue me. Here's the thing. When people come to me and they want help, I tell them straight up, like, this is your life. Like, this is life or death. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, because that's what people did for 10 years. My parents did it, my friends did it. Nobody could save me at all until I wanted to save myself, and I lost everything. So in the end, don't baby that person. Be tough with them up front. Get them into rehabs, try to help them as much as possible. Do it in a loving way, but be really tough about it, because the more that you baby somebody, the more they're gonna think that it's okay and they can just go back to what they were doing. So, yeah.
Actually, Marcus, as you answered that, the next question was going to be for you also. So as you add to that, do you still have friends that you were with during that time? Do you still associate with them? And what do you do now when you feel that urge to go do those things?
It's like it's people that still try to come around, and I'm just so scared. I just get that feeling of nervousness, and I get terrified, because I instantly start thinking about, even when I see that number that pop on my phone, I remember, I still know this number to the day. And I just get real nervous and jittery. I get that feeling now. I revert back to my past about, I used to hit that crack stem, in the car after we just go pick the dope up. And then I'm looking behind me, so nervous and paranoid, ready to throw everything out the window and stuff. And it was just bad, and that was the bottom of the bottom. Like I said, I lost everything, Thank God I've never really sold anything, but I sold my soul, though. That's the main thing I did. The devil really had me. And they were all my friends, as long as I was giving them all my paycheck. We spending about $350 worth of money, and then once I ran out of money with my check, then 2 hours later, and I'm ready for some more. Ready for another urge, ready for another hit. Then I credit like $20 worth to next Friday. Put myself in the hole. Till the point it was over like 3.5 years, continuously doing that same cause and repeat. Until I just lost everything, One night, I can honestly say, this is testimony, this is real, And it wasn't the drugs. I believe it was the drugs that I had to smoke crack in order to find Jesus. And I was just sitting on the couch with the front door wide open about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the same TV that I got in my room that's still working to this day, that's that same TV that was sitting in my living room when I was sitting on my couch. And I put that last 20 on the stem, and I smoked it. And I got so scared that thing always just scared me. And so I looked down the hallway, and I seen like a shadow coming up the hallway wall. So I just stood there, and I got so scared, and I felt like a cold drab walk beside me. And before you know it, the TV that was sitting on the stand wasn't nothing level, everything was level, sturdy, everything. The TV it didn't fall, boom, it just slowly fell. Like somebody grabbed it and pushed it over. And just that feeling that I felt, of course I ran out the house. That I did. I ran out the house. I was terrified, and that was Jesus. And that night, I got on my knees, and I prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, I need you to save me. And I prayed that night for him, and 3 knocks that next morning. It was 3 knocks. Boom, boom, boom. It was like almost 8 o'clock the next morning. I didn't know who it was. I thought it was somebody coming to see if I wanted to go do some more work for him, smoke some more dope. We didn't know what I was saying, to give my money to him. So I walked to the kitchen sink window holding my 2 chains so they wouldn't click while I walked to the kitchen sink window. So I opened up the kitchen sink window, and I looked out on the front porch, but nobody outside. That was like 2 minutes after I heard those 3 knocks. That was the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I went and got saved and baptized and teared that same weekend. Definitely. But yeah, but I still think about those things, because it's going to come in your brain where you're going to, whether you like with your sense, like you can smell things you smell like cocaine. You can smell things you smell like crack. You can hear things that used to sound like a sizzle of crack. It's in my head, then it instantly it goes away because I bind it up. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, it's gone. Just like that. Definitely. Yes, sir.
So for the sake of time, and there are a couple other questions I'm not gonna get to, so feel free to grab any of us after, if you've got questions. One that I did wanna get to before we finish up, Stephen, are there other resources available for education, prevention, everything else? And before you answer, one of the things that I wanted to share, I meant to do it earlier, there's a movie that came out almost a year ago called The Heart of Man, and ultimately it's addressing this issue, this heart sickness that we have that leads to the purchase of sex or porn addiction or whatever that looks like, called The Heart of Man, and it was just this past week released on Netflix. So you don't have to buy it, you don't have to, anything, it won't cost you a dime. It's a really good resource called The Heart of Man. And that's a good resource for anybody, honestly, whether it's porn addiction, chemical addiction, it addresses that heart sickness that we're dealing with. Other resources, probably in particular accountability type stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great resources out there. The good thing with us, we didn't have to go out and reinvent the wheel to come up with resources. So there's a lot of great ministries that are putting out resources, and there's a lot of great nonprofits that are putting out resources that are really tackling the pornography issue. One of the resources that I really follow is it's actually a Mormon group. They put out a lot of great parenting resources. Now their theology is whack, but I do follow that group. So there is a lot of great resources in there, and we can connect you with those resources. One of the big things is for the phones. Covenant Eyes is a really great app that you can put on the phone. You can really monitor, and it will screen your apps, and it will screen the internet usage, and it's a really good setup. However, it's not bulletproof, it's not foolproof. One of the things that you have to do is, I think accountability and having a high level of accountability is key. So for my personal life, I mean, it was a 20+ year addiction, so that I could walk into an old music store and it smells like a porn shop. I mean, it's just those smells are there. I understand what you're saying. Each week I have several guys that literally point blank ask me, did you look at pornography this week? I can't get around those questions because the last question is, did you lie to me? So I can't get around the questions. And so it's for me, it's having brothers and sisters that understand the struggle. They know what it's like, they know what the pool's like, and it's just doing life on life, getting in the trenches with people and doing life on life with people. That's where I really get my protection from, is having that high level of accountability. But we have to get there, and we have to be willing to take our mask off, to be vulnerable and say, I am broken, I do struggle, it's real, it doesn't go away, because God uses things to keep driving us back to the cross and driving us back to Him. And I think another reason people just don't want to deal with their pain. The greatest way that we come to God and having that relationship renewed is through Christ's death on the cross, and that's the most cruciating pain that someone could go through. God uses pain to bring about healing, and there is healing on this side of that.
Awesome. So last question, and it's kind of for everybody, and because I got several questions similar. Everyone has talked about the issues that created or were a result of broken relationships. Stephen, obviously with your history, there's mine. I'm proud and honored to say that my wife saw something in me that I didn't see. We celebrated 27 years of marriage, so she, God restored that. So with that, Connie, your relationship with your mother, has that been restored? What's going on there?
I continue to pray for her. Come on, someone. Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I know she was in town recently. She lives in North Carolina. I will continue to pray for her. I do pray for restoration. I pray for healing because I know that there's some brokenness in her. And there's something there that I know that set the ball rolling as far as what she did. When that relationship, or if it's ever restored, it will need to be godly and through Christian counselors, because I will not let my guard down.
Well, there's the desire on your part for restoration, because we know the one that restores, right?
That's right.
So,
That's
Sandy, your kids.
Whew.
Gosh, oh my gosh. I have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. And our relationship is so incredibly good. So incredibly good, and I'm so thankful for that, especially my son. He's 11. So I've been in and out of his life for, you know, my addiction. And just last year in May, I took him to dinner and we talked and we just had a really good conversation, and he just looked at me and he said, "I'm not mad at you and I love you." And if he wouldn't have said anything else to me that whole entire night, I would have been absolutely okay with that, because that is what I was looking for. And this boy wants a relationship with me, and he could easily say no, but he wants a relationship with me. My girls, we have a bond that can never be broken, and they're never going to know who I used to be. They're going to know me now, and that is what I'm thankful.
Awesome. The Lord can restore what's been lost. And finally, Mr. Bell, have you seen relationships that were plagued and broken by domestic violence? Have you seen them restored? Have you seen any that have been restored?
Not in my lifetime. I've seen women and men both who have tried, but they moved on and married other people, not come back together with that person. Because when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, that means you're sick and tired. It's time to move on. So I've seen them work with other people, but I haven't seen them work with that person.
And again, there is restoration in that. There's healing and restoration in that.
I mean, anybody, man, woman, can be saved. I'm not saying that just because you were an abuser or at one point that God didn't change your life. Because we don't know the problem that's going on with that person who is the abuser. You know, we always want to judge them. Just like we see children, we judge them. We don't know what they go through at home. We don't know what that child has to do every day at home to even survive, to come back to school the next day. So I try to look at everything with an open opinion to see what's going on with the person, because who are we to judge? We're here to help and try to maintain and make them see a better way.
At the end of the day, He holds our future, He is our hope, and He can restore all things. Thank you for your honesty, for your transparency. Thank you for being with us this morning. Y'all, let's give these folks a hand.
Single mom with 3 boys. Mr. Bell, very, very accurate on the criminal domestic violence. I was married for 15 years. He was bipolar. He was a drug addict, smoked crack, did meth, did coke, you name it, he did it. Of course, he wasn't like that when I married him. This came on after my oldest son, Tyler, was 2.5. I don't know what triggered it. There was a neighbor there. He tried it. He was curious. I mean, we were 21 at this point, and, you know, I'm thinking, oh, this is something we can get through. I mean, I was raised in church. I was a Christian. I believed in God. I sang in a gospel group. I mean, I can save him because I got God on my side. That's what I kept thinking. And he would go for months, and he would be fine. And he would check himself into rehab, and he'd come out, and he'd be fine. And then all over again. So then we had another child, Garrett. Same thing, rehab. I swear I'm going to be better. I swear I'm going to go to church. I promise. I love you. Rehab again. He come out. He's fine. 6 months, a year. Perfect. Like just the nicest person you've ever wanted to meet. Then the cycle would start over. And we split up a couple times, but it was a lot of abuse. I've had broken feet. I've had broken ankles. I've had teeth knocked out. He tried to drown me. He's held me up against a wall with my neck. I thought I was going to die, and I stabbed him in the eye with a cigarette. Anything I could do to get away from him. We had a 3rd child. Lord, I thank God every day for him, because I know there's a reason for my children, and that's it's hard for me. They've diagnosed me with PTSD. I was pretty much controlled. He started out with the mental abuse and knocking me down. You can't do anything. You're not even good at being a housewife. How can you do anything? I'm the only one that wants you. And then it started with the choking and the throwing across the room and the mental abuse and the physical abuse. It just kept coming and coming, and I kept leaving, and I was just like, but he loves me and I love him, and I know that God can do anything. And I have these 3 kids, and I'm not working. He's making all this money. If I don't stay there, then I can't pay my bills. And I wasn't going to go back to my mom and dad's. Lord help. No, been out of their house for a long time. But I think the last straw, the next to the last straw, I was in the bathroom and I was taking a bath, and he came in and he started yelling and he was accusing me of cheating on him. I'm like, I can't even leave the house. How am I cheating on you? I'm working, but when do I have time to cheat on you? So the next thing I know, my head's under the water, and I could just see flashes of my whole life from the time I was a little child to my children being born, and I was just like, oh God, this is it. He's going to kill me. And my youngest son was 3. And if it wasn't for him walking in that bathroom, I would be dead right now. So I left. I got out. I was working as a waitress, and I was going to school because I was going to prove him wrong. I was better than just being a housewife. And I was good at being a housewife now, but I was going to prove him that I was smart enough to, do what he said I couldn't. So I was working, and I left, and he moved back to Myrtle Beach, and it was constant. Just like he said, just like Mr. Bell said, he kept on. He wouldn't leave me alone. He kept, threatening me. He told my kids all kinds of horrible things about me, and it wasn't up until, this has been 10 years ago since I left. And to this day, in the last year, I blocked it out. In my head, he was dead. That's what I did. I put him to the back of my head. He did not exist. I didn't want to see him anymore. So I didn't file for divorce. He lived at the beach. I lived here. I was like, it's over. So we finally got divorced. And then about a year ago, I started having horrible anxiety. I would wake up in the middle of the night, panicking. And I've always had anxiety. I've always had panic attacks. And I was like, why am I waking up? It wasn't I wake up and have the panic attack. The panic attack woke me up. And I'm like, God, what? I don't understand. Please. And I would lay there and I would beg him, please take this away from me. I cannot do this. And this went on. And then we found out my nephew had cancer. So that added to it. And then I have, Garrett's been sick for over a year with some chronic stuff. And then, that was adding to it. And then I'm having anxiety attacks to the point I don't want to leave my house. I'm petrified to leave my house. I would sit at my house. Right now, it took so much to come out of the house. But I'm working on it. I'm in counseling. Just sitting at the house, it just made me feel safe. And I didn't want to interact with people. And I definitely didn't want them to know that I was suffering from this mental thing of PTSD. Because who wants to admit that they have this issue? Who wants to admit that they are not all together? Because, I look put together. And nobody knew that I was having these anxiety attacks that would cause me to throw up. They would cause my entire body just to shut down. But it was by the grace of God that I'm working through that. And I know now that I have to face it and I have to work through it. You can't just get over it. Because you know how many people tell me just to get over it? So I'm working on a book that I'm planning on releasing eventually. It's called Just Get Over It. And I'm addressing it to that person who told me to just get over it. Because they don't understand what I went through. They don't understand the torment and the fighting for money to pay bills. It was awful. I had to literally tape my credit cards to myself so he couldn't find them. I would hide money in the wall so he couldn't find it. He took every last dollar. He would take food out of the refrigerator and go sell it for drugs. He sold my car for drugs without a title. So I could tell you stories all day, but I'm supposed to be singing. But I always look at this, and God keeps telling me, Paul's thorn in his side. I keep hearing that, and I'm like, and it's 2 Corinthians 12, 8 through 9. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So I have decided that that's what God wants me to do. He wants me to share my testimony, and He wants me to use my gift that He gave me, because I'm not up here singing for me. I could be in the country bar singing if I wanted to, but that's not where I'm called. This is not me up here. The songs that I pick, I don't pick them. I had a whole different lineup on Wednesday when Connie called me. Last night, God said, no, that's not what you're doing. You're doing these, and that's how it's going to be. So, go ahead. Walking the same old road for miles and miles. You've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies. You try to fill the empty holes inside, but there's a better life. There's a better life. If you got pain, He's a pain taker. If you feel lost, well, He's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, He's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, He's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day and the terror of night. We've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run to things we know just ain't right, but it's a better life. It's a better life. If you got pain, He's a pain taker. If you feel lost, He's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, He's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, He's a chain breaker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify. If you believe it, you receive it. If you can feel it, somebody testify, testify. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify. If you got chains, He's a pain taker. If you feel lost, He's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, He's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, He's a chain breaker. If you need freedom or saving, He's a prison shaking savior. You got chains, He's a chain breaker.
It's through a lot that we go through that we find our passion and our purpose. We think that the brokenness and things that goes on, how could God let this happen? Like I said, that's where our passion is, and that's where we will serve Him through going out and helping others.
Amen.
This next young lady, I'm very humbly honored to introduce you to tell you about. I met her 4 years ago at, she was introducing the movie 8 Days. And like I said, I was with another organization talking about sex trafficking. She told me different things as far as it would take place. I doubted some things, but curious about others. Another time I reached out to her was 2 years ago, and that was through the Red Sand. Red Sand is where you don't want another lady to fall through the cracks through sex trafficking or anything. That things are not out of sight or out of mind. And we have to make that difference. She is someone I want to be like, a mentor. I've had others to say, you know, you need to be careful of this or that. She's a private investigator. She goes out and talks about bullying, and her goal is to make a difference in not just young ladies' lives and women, but everyone's life. It is my honor to introduce my sister, my friend, Chandra Jennings.
Everyone came up before. I don't need this. I have a very loud mouth. I have been in law enforcement for 34 years, and I speak all the time for law enforcement, to the military, to everywhere. This is what I do. And I talk to a lot of people every single day. And I'm very passionate, as you'll hear in my voice, about what I do. The 34 years I've been in law enforcement, I've overcome a lot. So I came in law enforcement when it wasn't cool for women to be there. And nobody couldn't tell me that I was not going to continue to be there. You will be gone before I'm gone. I was always very educated. Of course, when I started out in law enforcement, I started out in 911 dispatch. Then from there, I came in as an undercover agent in Two Notch Road. Two Notch Road was my home. I was an undercover prostitute locking up Johns every single day. Every day, I would be out there doing prostitution calls. Then I went on and was doing a whole lot in the community. But before I finish and start this, I want to make an announcement of a lot of people saying what they suffer from. I have a bad mouth. Them 4-letter words won't leave me. And it has never gotten me in trouble. Mine is when you come at me and you're trying to get at me, or you're trying to get at one of my girls that I told you to stay away from, there's some words that come out that I ain't even right, and I have to ask God to forgive me, and He forgives me every single time. But if you try to take someone who can't defend for themselves, and they ask me to help them, you just met the devil, because I'm going to do everything to stop you. You know, Bill talks about how he hasn't met anyone in domestic violence who actually changed. I have. And you know why I did? Because I don't just lock people up. You know, my whole time in the sheriff department, my accommodations came from alcoholics, prostitutes, wife beaters, and girls who tried to run away over and over and over again. Because when I arrest you, you're going to have to listen to my mouth. I'm going to preach to you. I'm going to preach to you. You know you was wrong. Now, I am one, you know, my doctor always laughed at me because she's like, you're the bravest woman I know. But when I pull out a needle, you're such a wimp. I am. I don't like needles. And we have to go through this whole little misogynist thing before she can even finish with the needle or do anything else. We're going to have to talk about this because I'm going to fight always. So I'm in the fight mode when it comes to needles. But, you know, I met this guy who had abused his wife, and this was the first time that he abused his wife. So I sat down there with him and I read him the Riot Act. What made you think that was okay? Do you not know this is the mother of your child? You did it in front of your child. And that's what we all take too much for granted. We always want to lock up someone without talking to them. Kids will tell you during my time and tenure as a school resource officer, you did something wrong. Officer Cleveland gonna have you in the office and tell me why you thought that was okay. Why in the fudge did you think that was okay? And I need an answer. When I ask anyone a question, I always demand an answer. Because that's going to let me know how far your mind is thinking about where you're going. I heard some people up here talk about, you know, one young lady talk about depression and separation. Quite a few people talked about being separated before God came to them and said what He said. If you don't ever remember anything, God separates you to work on you. Amen. If he has to keep breaking you down and knocking you down over and over again, that's what you're going to get. Until you realize the separation is necessary. It's necessary and for you to understand where he's trying to take you. So when you're there and you're sitting up and you say things are going on in your life and you don't know how you're going to get out of it, address it. Young lady, I know that you're young and you said depression, so the depression won't come back on you. You keep yourself busy. But guess what? You're going to tire yourself out and the depression's going to come back harder. What you need to do is address it. Anything that's wrong. Sex, trafficking, addiction to porn, addiction to being with someone who's beating your brains out every single day. You need to address the issue. Why am I staying here? Why am I keep staying here when this man sends me to the hospital every other month? Why are you still there? Until you're able to answer that question, nobody's going to get you the help or the necessary help that you need. Because it's up to your mindset to change. When your mindset changes, everything else changes. You can't think that you can fix anyone. If it was that easy, call me the fixer. Because that's me. I can't fix you, but I can help address the issue that's wrong with you. And that's the key to all of this. And you talked about earlier about how is sex trafficking, how is domestic violence, how is everything being done in South Carolina. South Carolina is the last in everything that we don't want to be. But South Carolina still has on the law books that you can take your wife to the state house on a Sunday and beat her brains out and you won't get charged. Just take her to the state house. So you wonder why domestic violence is so hard is because the people who are stroking the pen that change the laws are beating their wives at night.
Wow.
You wonder why the people keep staying and not saying anything because that person who's beating them up is the person who's sitting on the judge's seat. The person that's beating them up has on the badge that comes to the door. The person that beats them up is the doctor that you have confrontation with as a nurse every single day. He's not just knocking you down. He's knocking somebody else down at home. So the problem with domestic violence, sex trafficking, is that the 2 and 2 goes together. Nobody wants to tell their dirty little secret. Nobody wants to sit down with these kids and say, sex is not what you need. No, we're going to look at it. You're going to look at it and see it here first. Tell me why you thought it was okay for you to sit in that room and videotape yourself and give it to another young man. Tell me why you thought that was okay. You know why she and he thought it was okay? Because you as a mother, as a father, as a sister, as a cousin, did not have the conversation. When you don't have the conversation, who do they get the conversation from? Somebody that looks just like them, who's young, dumb, and full of... So why would they look to somebody else, or why would they go out and do the things they do? Because nobody sat them down and told them differently. We are such a society that I need to work and get this, my son needs this, my child needs this, oh no, we can't get that $45 phone. No ma'am, give me the $7.99 iPhone because my child needs that iPhone. For real? That's what we do? Yeah. That's exactly what we do. And you know what we do? You know why we do it? Our child is going to be our friend. That is going to be my best friend. She's going to tell me everything because I give her everything in the world. You gave her a pass not to come back and tell you nothing that happened. That's exactly what you did. You gave her a pacifier to say, here, take that. You don't have to ask mommy for anything else. Why is it that we're so quick in the industry now that we let our children go spend the night with anyone? You don't know the daddy. You don't know the mama. You don't know anything about these people. But Little Susie, that's your angel. She never does anything wrong. Little Susie has created a little conniving spirit of herself. And she thinks that her mother is blinded, which she is. That she can come in and give her a kiss and say, Mom, I just love you. And you love her, but you don't question her. When she said she's going to stay the weekend with Susan, did you check to see if she made it safely? Times out of 10, there's not enough time on the clock for you to do that because you got to be to work at 7, you get off at 3, you go to another job, and then you have to pick up little Bobby to take him to the football game. So no, you don't even have time. So meanwhile, on that Friday, she has a boyfriend named John that calls her and say, come spend the weekend with me and we can make some money and you can get your hair done, you can get your nails done, and maybe we can kick in some shoes today. Okay, that sounds like a plan with me. This is what our children are thinking. This is what our children are thinking because you refuse to let any other adult pour into your child. Because it's not you. You feel, no, you don't correct my child. How dare you? Because it's not you, the absent mother that you think that you are mother of the year because you buy your child everything they don't want for anything. Wrong answer. Because while you think little Susie is at home and going to spend the night with another friend, she's being prostituted the whole weekend. And she comes back to you on Sunday night with a smile. You see her brand new shoes. You see that her hair is done. You see her nails is done. Did you ask her where the money came from? Remember, she doesn't have a job. How dare you walk in my house and you got on new shoes, your nails are done, your hair is done, and you don't have a job? But no, second opinion, how dare we as a mother go through our child's room and search her room? She has privacy. I wouldn't dare do that as a parent. Oh, fudge, no. Oh, no, you won't. No, you won't put a lock on that door. Oh, that's what you won't do. Oh, no, you won't keep her safe in your room. That's what you won't do. And oh, no, you won't change the password on that $799 phone that I bought. We think our kids demand so much privacy that we're letting them walk right into the arms of somebody else to teach them. It's not what's wrong with these kids nowadays. It's what's wrong with us as a society. That village mentality has gone. It's on me. It's on me to do everything. It's on me. No, you don't know my child like that. Don't talk to her like that. Apparently, you don't really know your child because your child has a worse mouth than that. Y'all, we have to get better. You don't look at that child and say, oh my God, what is wrong with her with that on? Did she not? You don't know what's wrong with that child. You don't know if that's all she has to put on. Instead of you as an adult pointing out her flaws, why don't you walk up and talk to her? Say, hey, how you doing? Let me talk to you for a second. I wanted you to go somewhere with me because they had this and this and this, and don't even worry about it. I have a dress that I think is perfect on you. I'm going to bring it to you. You don't know what that does to a woman, a little girl's self-esteem. Because maybe her mother's not thinking about her. Her mother's thinking about Jerry, who she met last week, and she's trying to impress Jerry. So mom is all into her new boyfriend, and you are last. It's no more debate which came first, the chicken or the egg, or the boyfriend or the child. Which came first, boyfriend or your child? Know the difference, ladies, that you think you may need companionship. And how dare you as a man say that you want to spend all your time with this new lady that you met and she has 2 children? How dare you? But are we addressing the issue? No. We want love. We want to be happy. So it's all about us. Child, get in your room and close the door. Oh, but what's behind that door with her? My little cell phone. So I see why mom is so in love with that boy, because this boy just said the same thing to me. My mama said he loved her. So he really loves me. He wouldn't ask me to send him a picture if he really didn't love me. He wouldn't tell me to do certain things if he really didn't love me. But how would your child know about love? You haven't showed it to her lately, him lately. So how would they know about love? We got a lot of broken parents raising broken children, and we have a broken society. And we sit around and say, what happened? What's going on with our kids? It's us. All of us have a hand. You have to raise your hand to responsibility. We need to step back into the parenting cycle. It's no longer about, oh, I'm so ashamed. I found out my child is having sex. I'm not going to tell anybody. Let me just tell her, okay, Becky, you're going to get on birth control pills. Don't you share this with anybody. Do not tell your aunt, because you know she's going to talk. Like sex is not a normal thing. Sex is your dirty little secret. We've been taught that all our lives. Instead of what to do with your hypersensitive sexual activity. What do I do with it? How do I counter it? I can't talk to anybody about it because they wouldn't understand. They would say that I'm nasty, that something else is going on. No, child, you have curiosity. That curiosity needs to be addressed at home, behind those four doors. Not because they're doing something and you feel outrageous because it's something that you did not do or it never happened in your family before, so you want to keep this a family secret. Your secrets are going to kill you. It's killing our children right now. It's killing our children faster than we know. Oh, but we can buy a $799 cell phone for them. But we can't buy a security that is a monthly security that will send you every picture, every text message that your child sends out. We can't add the extra $19 on it. When that's all it takes for us to save our kids from their curiosity and sending a message or sending a picture that will ruin their life before it even starts. But no, all we're thinking about is our boyfriend, our job, and God forbid if anything happens to your child, you are the victim. How dare me to come to your house and look at you like, how dare me to go on your website after I'm looking for your child who's been missing, who's 14, who got out of the house at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I look at your social media, and it's all about mom. Mom has pictures galore on social media. Where are pictures of you and your child? We're allowing bad decisions and bad behaviors to rub over in our family lives. And we look up and we say, how did sex trafficking get here? I have been an advocate for sex trafficking for 7 years. And I'm not the kind of activist that come up and you just see me at a breakfast gala, a lunch gala. We're here talking about it on this month. This is Sex Trafficking Awareness Month on January. So I'm just going to pop up in January and let's talk about it. I live, sleep, and eat this. I rescue girls every single day. I pour into a young girl every day as my purpose. Every day. This is not something that I'm selling you a secret. You don't know me. I don't have to brag to you about what I do. But I'm out there and not enough people were out there with me. But like it says, if I have to do it by myself, and with God protection of shield around me, that's what I'm gonna do. But we gotta stop asking why and how, when we really see the why and the how it happened. We see that Kershaw County, when I was on television the other day and being interviewed by television station after television station, because I know how to hack cell phones, I know how to track these girls where they are when they're missing. I can find them within an hour and a half. And they ask me, well, how do we get kids to stop sexting? Talk about it. You keep talking about it enough, talking about the consequences of it, you'll stop. It is that simple. You don't talk about it just because one person in the neighborhood finally got sentenced to 8 years for disseminating child porn because the child was under the age of 15. So now your child has to register as a sex offender for the rest of their life. Oh my God, my child is ruined. Oh my God, how could they do this to my child? Start looking in the mirror first, people, before you ask about your child. How could they do anything? How did you allow that to happen? How dare you say someone else? How dare you demand something be done because your child now picture is all over the internet? How dare you? How dare you? Sex trafficking is an industry that's not going to go away overnight. The gun killings are not an industry that's going to go away overnight. These kids sharing sexual pictures and sex crave is not going to go away overnight. But we can start listening and talking to them about it. It's one of the problems, and I keep saying every time that I'm around young people, I talk for a little bit to give out information, then I need to hear back from you. Do you understand why you ask questions instead of demanding, fussing, screaming, hollering at your child? Do you know why you should ask questions? Because sometimes it's just pure innocent that nobody never told them different. Nobody told them different. So therefore, the opinion and their actions of what they do now came from themselves. Self-taught, looking at social media and looking at other people who do not have a parent at home. We used to say, oh, those single parent moms, oh my gosh, those are the worst kids in the world. Oh my gosh, no it's not. It is this, so both parents who are home are the worst kids there are. Because if they're having, the kid has not divided the mother and the daughter, the father and the mother on their side, on this side, mom, dad did this. Let me tell you, I was just like, Dad, can I go to the party? And he was like, no, get in your room. And Mom, you know, I did all my chores this week. I did everything. I even cleaned up y'all's bathroom, remember? So Mom's like, baby, I'll take care of it. Just go ahead and have a good time. And you told her to go out there and have a good time. But you didn't warn her of the things that are out there. So now she's missing. It's 11 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. Your 14-year-old is not at home yet. It's 1 o'clock. Your 14-year-old is still not home. It's 2 o'clock. Now you and your husband are arguing at each other. Why did you let her go? I told her no. You said yes. I said I let her go because that. So now you have something else that's dividing your time of where it needs to be concentrated on. Now the point in the fact you think, okay, It's 5 hours past her curfew. Let's call law enforcement. You call law enforcement. They ask you for a description of your child. What was she wearing? The father looks at the mother. The mother looks at the father. Neither one of you even know what your child was wearing. Oh, it's real hurtful. When you call me in, you better have your ducks in a row, honey. Because I'm going to give it to you. And I'm not just going to give it to you just to be giving it to you. You get to hear this now from me. You can make a change in your niece, your brother, your sister, whoever child is in your life, your child in your life, and sit down and have these conversations. It may seem harsh right now what I'm saying, but I bet you everybody in here is thinking back in your mind of what actually happened. We as a community, we as a church have to do better. I demand that we do better. How dare you not address sex in church? When that is the most sexiest, dirtiest place in there. How dare you think that church is off limits when the man is watching porn 24/7, who is leading his congregation? How dare you? When you know that Pastor so-and-so walks up to you and rub your back like it makes you feel uncomfortable. How dare you not approach him with it? How dare you not tell him he makes you uncomfortable? But when your little girl get Pastor so-and-so over there and Pastor rubs on her back and she's like, oh, that's my pastor. My mom loves the pastor. My grandma loves the pastor. And then the pastor loves her and tell her not to tell no one. But how dare you tell her the possibility that that could happen? We all sit here and we think that sex trafficking, the sex trafficker looks a certain way. He's weird, he's strange, he's going to come and try and take you, he's going to sell you a pipe dream, he's going to do this, and you need to watch out for him. If he say, come here and let me put my hands on you, that's a sex trafficker, so don't be with him. But we didn't say, hey baby, is anybody who touched you that makes you feel uncomfortable? Is anybody who touched you after you said no? We don't have kitty names for our private parts. We have a vagina and a penis. Tell your child that, because guess who's telling them? That cell phone will tell them at the pinch of their finger. Tell them if your coach, I don't care if he's award-winning, has brought 25 awards to this high school. If he touched you inappropriately, I need to know. I'm never going to send my child back to a law enforcement officer who made her feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to send my child to a coach that touched my child inappropriately. And surely I'm not going to be a part of a congregation where my 12-year-old daughter walks in front of the congregation and the pastor puts his hand on her breast. But that's South Carolina. That's what we do. We don't talk about it. We don't tell anybody about it. So guess what happens after that? We have another child who's a victim. We have another child who's a victim. We have another child who's a victim, who grows up to an adult, who grows up into a mom, and now she don't know what to do with her child. What do we do? These are things that we have to address, people. We have to. We've gotten away from face-to-face conversation. I'll text you tomorrow. Okay, just wait out for me. I'll give you a text message. Mom, I don't have time to talk right now. Just text me later. But you let that go. It's okay. And now you don't even know when was the last time you had a conversation with your child. It's cell phones ruining our teenagers. It's cell phones ruining the next generation. It's only doing it because we're allowing it. Nobody has time for nothing else.
That's right.
Make time for family. Put family first. Yeah, the bills has to get paid, but there needs to be a time and everything for everything. If it's raining outside, you still have to go to work, right? So why is it that if your child is having a basketball, football game, or cheering, that you can't make time to be there at one of those events when you know what time it was, right? Priority. Family is priority. Our family values are gone. That's why sex trafficking is able to continue to go over and over and over again. This is why people keep having these sexual addictions. Our children are being violated because we're not talking to them. And we're not asking them questions either. We're talking at them. We don't ask them, how do you feel about what I said? Well, I never heard of that before. Probably not. They never heard of it before. Sex trafficking industry, we say that Atlanta was #1, Charlotte was #2 within our area, and South Carolina barely had an arrest. Wow, how we do that? We're right in the middle, right? That's because nobody is looking. Nobody is looking. Everybody is doing everything that they want to do, but nobody's watching the child. I'm going to stop right there because I think I'm getting everybody a little bit intense, but this is where I want you to be, because we have a worldwide crisis, and it's not going to get easier. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Everybody thinks that it's worse in right now, but no, baby, I need to talk to you. I need to understand what you're saying. I want to hear what you think about this. Why did you think it was a good idea? But you know, we started off all this other thing is telling a child, you don't ask why. They should ask why. Because now since you told them they don't ask why, let me tell you the cycle of telling mommy, you don't ask why, do as I say. Okay. So now when the teacher is teaching them, they don't really understand. They're not going to raise their hand and ask why. Then when somebody else is doing something to them, they're not going to ask them, why are you doing this to me? So the effects of this trickling down and down and down the line has devastated our family values. What we do in this house stays in this house. How dare you? When you don't even know with your broken self as a parent what is supposed to stay in your house.
All right now.
I had a video to show you guys, and since it was not set up, God just gave me the words to say. I never have been a speaker that I take paper and pencil up everybody that I go and speak out to. I travel around the world speaking, and I never write a speech. No phase is the same words that come out of my mouth, because I feed off the people that are here. I feed off God to tell me and put it in my spirit. As soon as I stand up here, I don't know what I'm going to say. But I felt that need to be said because the people here is going to truly make a difference.
Amen.
All right. All right. All right.
The people that are here are going to make the difference into where our children go in this world. I don't have any children. I had cancer when I was 26. It may be back on the 5th of May this year. The 5th of March when I go and check, because some things are not right. But what I do know is that God gave me a purpose and a mission. It's to save kids.
Come on.
So as long as I have this voice and am able to speak, well, I hope the 4-letter words don't come out. But as long as I have this mouth and this body and able to speak, I'm going to speak it into parents, because parenting did not come with a handbook. Maybe your mother taught you wrong and her mother taught her wrong, but nobody wants to admit that I don't know where else to go from here. I know law enforcement tell you, and this is why I got into doing my own thing, because I hated going to parents' house and they said, oh my God, can you help me with this child? Because he's going to kill somebody or he's going to get killed. Have you ever heard of, well, you're not, but that's another thing. Law enforcement officers hear that all the time. And all we have to tell them is that, I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't do anything until they get in trouble. That's too late. That is too late. If your child needs a mentor or you don't know what else to do, it's up to you to reach out to somebody else. Don't allow your child to keep spiraling out of control. And then you sit there and you say, I asked for help. Keep asking. Go to your school counselors. Tell them you want your child to have a mentor. They will find your child a mentor. You as an adult need a mentor. Don't think you're too old to have a mentor. Don't let anybody tell you that. Don't let nobody tell you that. We all need someone else to talk to. We all have a spot in our life that we're not clear as to where we're going. And if you would rather go down the life with blinders on, shame on you. Because pride will get you addicted, depressed, dead, suicide, or kill somebody else. Because you're so angry that you don't know what to do with your life, you go and take somebody else's life. The young man who killed all those school kids the other day, somebody should have saw he was hurting. Somebody should have saw he was broken. The signs came out the woodwork. I was telling the news channel, I tell you, 10 people are going to come forward and say that they saw the signs. We're all so good with saying, I told them that he said last month he was going to kill somebody. But what did you do? What else did you do? What else did you do? We got to do better. We got to change with time. We got to change our schools. Just because somebody said something and nobody else did anything, if that kid is a part of your institution, it's up to you as the institution that he attend to address this young man. There should be eyes on him every day. There should be somebody who make contact with him every day. Whether it's 15 students, you put everybody on a 15-day cycle, speak to Jared today. Speak to Jared today. Speak to Jared today. That's what needs to be done. How easy is that? It's 15 different teachers. We can't keep allowing our kids' dreams and aspirations and inspirations to die young. Our kids are dying of depression. Our kids are dying of other mental illness because nobody addressed the issue. When you know something, you do something.
That's right. Yeah.
So now y'all know. Thank you.
So events like this, the Did You Know, we're showing ministries coming together in a unity. Because you look out here and you see a lot of ministries saying, you know, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, and too many pointing fingers, or, oh, they're walking on my territory. Well, you know, traffickers look at that too when girls are out walking the tracks and everything. This whole world is God's territory. Amen. And this, you know, is showing a unity with organizations, sharing God's love, and we want to pour into not only our children, each other's children, and your children. In order to have events like this, it takes all of us. That's right. And it's sharing His love and grace and sharing where can we go? And did you know this? Or did you know so-and-so down the street is trying to pull your child into something? Because too many times we want to say, out of sight, out of mind. Well, everything is not out of sight, out of mind. It's time for the unity. And if we don't bring it, the wrong ones will.
That's right. That's right. I'd like to thank my daughter, first of all, Felisha McCaskill. She lives, sleep, and eat this. You know, when in the morning when the phone rang at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, it's Felisha on the other end, and she's saying, "Mom, are you awake?" Yes, Felisha, I'm awake. Okay, I think we need to do this, and I think we need to do that, and I came up with another great idea, and I think we need to just go this route, and what do you think? So that's every day, and I'm not kidding you guys, this is every day, every day. What do you think? Oh, I had a dream about this, and I had a vision about this. So I just like to thank Jesus Christ for her and her
First giving honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. See, that's why I didn't want to speak. But I give Jesus the honor and the glory. But it's truly within my heart to just, bring forth awareness and to give people, what I haven't been giving. Girls and women, they're at the core of my heart. Whatever I've been through, whatever I've been experienced, I want to speak up on it. I want to share it. I don't want to keep it to myself, because I used to be that person who kept it to myself. And I kept it to myself because I didn't feel that I could trust anybody. But when you have Jesus and your trust is in him, you share the information with it, you plant that seed, and he said, one planteth, another one watereth, and he said, I'll give the increase. And that's all I'm doing today. But I just want to thank each and every dear heart for being here. I salute you in the name of Jesus. And my prayer is that this will continue and that it will grow more and more and more and more. And we can go around saying, did you know? Did you know? Did you know? And that did you know will make an impact into people's lives. So I thank you.